Prologue. The Mars Incident. The year was 2035. Humanity had finally set foot on Mars, marking the pinnacle of human exploration. The Lazarus Institute, a private conglomerate with its tendrils in everything from medical advancements to space exploration, had funded the mission. Their logo, a sleek black L, was stamped boldly across every piece of equipment, from the astronauts' suits to the towering modules of the Mars base. Inside the sterile, high-tech confines of the base, Dr. Marco Voss, the mission leader, adjusted his visor as he examined the strange artifact unearthed in the red soil. It wasn't a rock or any known mineral. It pulsed faintly with a glowing, almost organic light. "What do you think, Voss?" one of the astronauts asked, peering over his shoulder. "I think," Voss said slowly, his voice tight with awe and unease, "we've just found proof that we're not alone." The artifact thrummed in his hand, a faint vibration that made his skin tingle. "Should we call it in?" the astronaut asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Voss hesitated, staring at the alien object. He was a scientist, a man of logic and reason, but something about the artifact unsettled him. It was as if it were alive, as if it were watching him. "Not yet," Voss finally said. "Let's keep this between us for now, until we know what we're dealing with." Hours later, the base was quiet, save for the low hum of machinery and the faint hiss of air vents. Inside the lab, an unnamed scientist sat slouched at his workstation, earbuds tucked firmly into his ears as he idly scrolled through a data pad. The artifact sat on a nearby examination table, encased in a glass containment unit. Its faint pulsing glow cast eerie shadows on the walls, but the scientist paid it no mind. He absently reached for a bag of chips, his eyes locked on the data pad, oblivious to the subtle changes happening just a few feet away. The artifact sparked, a faint, almost imperceptible flicker of light. The scientist frowned, glancing up. He removed one earbud, tilting his head as he stared at the object. It sparked again, a brief but brilliant flash. "Did that just—" he muttered to himself, setting down the data pad and standing up. He stepped closer, squinting through the glass. The artifact pulsed again, faster this time, the glow intensifying. "Hey, he started to call out, but before he could finish, the artifact flared with a sudden blinding light. The room filled with an ear-splitting hum, and the scientist staggered backward, shielding his eyes. The glow burst outward, engulfing him and everything in its path. Alarms blared as the artifact's containment shattered, releasing a wave of energy that surged through the corridors. Voss staggered through the corridors, alarms blaring in his ears. The once pristine base was now a nightmare. Walls scorched, equipment malfunctioning, and crew members writhing on the floor. Some were convulsing, their bodies glowing faintly with the same light as the artifact. Others were dead, their skin charred as if burned from the inside out. This can't be happening," Voss gasped, clutching a railing for support as the ground beneath him shook. The last thing he saw before the base's emergency shutters closed was the artifact, pulsing brighter and brighter until the light consumed everything. Earth, 1 month later. The official report from the Lazarus Institute was brief. A catastrophic system failure had led to the deaths of all crew members on Mars. The public was told it was an unfortunate accident, the cost of pushing humanity's limits. But behind closed doors, the Lazarus executives knew the truth. The artifact hadn't just been an object, it was alive. The Institute's boardroom, lit by the cold glow of screens, was silent as Dr. Edward Lazarus reviewed the classified footage. His expression was calm, calculating, as he watched the artifact's energy consume the Mars base. "We can't let this end here," Lazarus said finally, his voice smooth and authoritative. "There's potential here, potential we can't afford to waste." One of his assistants hesitated. "But sir, the risks." "Every breakthrough carries risks," Lazarus interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "Find me test subjects. I don't care where or how, but find them. If this energy can be harnessed, it will change everything." The Mars incident was swiftly buried, dismissed as little more than a historical footnote. But for those who witnessed it or were forged in its aftermath, the real story was only just beginning. Chapter 1. Shadows over Sunspire. Sunspire wasn't a city where people lived. It was a city where people survived. The beach, once golden and bustling with tourists, was now littered with rusted drones and broken glass. The boardwalk creaked with every step, its planks weathered and rotting. In the distance, the Lazarus Institute's tower loomed like an alien monolith, its sleek black exterior an unwelcome contrast to the decay around it. Will Kane leaned back against the rusted hood of an old car in an abandoned lot, the faint orange glow of a blunt glowing between his fingers. The scent of burnt weed hung heavy in the air as he passed it to Keith, who was slouched beside him. "You ever think about leaving this place?" Keith asked, exhaling a cloud of smoke. Will snorted, flicking his lighter absent-mindedly. "Every damn day, and every day I remember I'm broke. Ain't no getting out of Sunspire without money." Keith nodded slowly, staring up at the faint outline of the Lazarus Tower against the night sky. "Sometimes I think I'll just pack up Mia and Mom, hit the road, and drive until I can't see this place anymore. Maybe head out west. Start over." "Yeah, and I'll be right behind you," Will said, smirking. "In my imaginary car with my imaginary gas money." They both laughed, but the silence that followed was heavy. Will let his head fall back, his gaze wandering to the stars barely visible through the haze of city pollution. He couldn't help but think about simpler times. Him, Keith, and Happ. When they were just kids riding their beat-up bikes down the cracked pavement of Sunspire's back streets. Happ had always been the daredevil of the group, the first to suggest racing down the steepest hill or jumping the rickety ramps they built from scraps. Keith was the cautious one, always warning them about busted chains or loose bolts, but still laughing just as hard when someone wiped out. And then there was Will, somewhere in the middle, always torn between Happ's wild ideas and Keith's practical sense. Back then, they didn't think about money, survival, or the shadow Lazarus cast over their lives. They just lived. Now Happ was deep in the game. Keith was barely keeping his family afloat. And Will didn't know where he stood anymore. "You good?" Keith's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Yeah," Will said quickly, taking another drag from the blunt. "Just thinking." "About what?" Will hesitated, then shrugged. "Nothing important." Will handed him the blunt, his expression thoughtful. "We're better than this place, Will. You could have gone to college, gotten out clean." "Yeah, right," Will said bitterly. "And how was I supposed to pay for that? Keith, this place doesn't let you win. It chews you up, spits you out, and keeps moving." Keith leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "So what are we supposed to do? Just stay here and rot?" Will took a long drag, letting the smoke burn in his lungs before exhaling. "Maybe we don't have a choice. Maybe this is all we've got." Keith shook his head. "Nah, man, there's got to be more. We just got to figure out how to get it." They sat in silence for a while, the distant hum of the city filling the void between them. Later that night, Happ leaned against a lamppost, flipping a coin as Will approached. "You know, you're wasting your time out here," Happ said. "And what should I be doing, Happ? Robbing folks like you?" "Not robbing, redistribution," Happ replied with a smirk. "You've done jobs for me before. Easy money. What makes this one any different?" "Yeah, we've done some small stuff. Boosting cars, running errands. But Lazarus don't play around, Happ," Will said, flicking his lighter shut with a metallic snap. "Relax. We get in, grab what we need, and bounce. No one gets hurt. You trust me, don't you?" Will hesitated. His gut told him this was a mistake, but Happ's grin was infectious. "One job. That's it," he finally said. "You won't regret it," Happ replied, tossing the coin into the air and catching it as he walked away.